Unfortunately, our next speaker will join us online through this screen. Marko Velic is Director of Engineering in a company called Photomath, which is the fastest growing ad tech company whose mobile app is #1 top app in the world to learn math. It's powered by advanced machine learning technology and instantly scans, securely solves, and intuitively explains printed and handwritten math problems to users through step-by-step explanations. It has more than 250 million downloads, and it's one of the fastest growing apps of this sort in the history. So Marko will start his lecture as soon as we see their promotional video.
Hi everyone, I'm Marko. I'm sorry for not being able to be with you today at Belgrade, but anyhow, thanks to organizers for inviting me for this talk. I will be giving a talk about engineering management practices at Photomath, more specifically at Photomath's AI team. But let me just share my screen. Just a second. Okay, can you see my presentation? Yes, okay, cool. So just a brief introduction. I started my career in 2007 in machine learning professionally since 2009 or around that period. PhD in machine learning in 2014. Worked for a couple of companies, smaller ones, bigger ones, big corporations like Facebook in the last 2 years. And this year, from the beginning of this year, I'm at Photomath. Last 2 months as director of engineering, but before that I was working as head of AI team, and I will focus my presentation today more on that part. So in general, this is the contents of today's lecture. So I will give a brief intro about AI team and the work the team is doing. Then I will speak a bit about what it is, scalable organization, what it takes for organization to be scalable, meaning to support fast growth without falling into chaos and ensuring high engineering output. Then I will describe a bit what engineering manager role is, how we see project management, how we see people management, performance management, and similar topics. First, disclaimer. So methods presented here are tried out and tested at Photomath's AI team, which is a new team which has heavy research component and has a strategic focus from management. There will be some references to Facebook in this lecture, but mostly it will be related to our work here at Photomath. Goal is to share knowledge, seek feedback, and discuss big topics if there will be time. So why this disclaimer? Because I'm very well aware that not all of these principles can be used maybe at your companies if you do not have all the support that we had here at Photomath, and it takes a bit of prerequisites in terms of company culture to be able to support all the things that I will be talking about today. So just briefly about AI team. AI has been a big component of the Photomath app and engineering since the beginning. But at the beginning of this year, we decided to put more focus on that and to actually re-establish AI operation that was somehow neglected for the last 2 or 3 years here at Photomath because of the focus on other stuff. So Photomath started heavy on AI, most notably with this component of recognizing formulae that users are taking images of. But then engineering teams here focused on other parts of the product, like marketplace, internal tools, and everything around that. But now this year we started heavily again on the machine learning front, and we now have 20 actually. So this is this information is a bit outdated. So we have 20 engineers in AI at Photomath today. We have in this, let's say, 8 or 9 months of existence of the team, we developed, we finished more than a dozen projects, and we put into production like three bigger things. So how we were able to grow that significantly so fast and have the output of so many projects done in just 7 or 8 months, this is actually what we will try to answer with this talk today. But first of all, what it takes to have the best EdTech app in the world. So the first, of course, we need to hit the right niche or right need, which is the unstuck philosophy that Photomath is following as a main, let's say, feature. But we are now expanding on this, and we do not plan to be just the unstuck app. But this was clearly our first, let's say, win. But we want to support learning as well, of course. The second one is to have the best educational content, because once we recognize the problem that the user is taking the picture of, we need to give them really great content so they are able to get unstuck and they are able to learn math. And of course, to have stellar technology to support all of this. And this is actually quite difficult because studies suggest that 90% of startups in general fail. More than 60% of all software projects fail. And there are some studies that suggest that between 85 and 96% of machine learning projects never make it to production. So these things are really extremely hard to achieve. Where is engineering management coming from? So this is not something that we invented like now. This is something that is actually been out there for quite a long time. And it took many decades of trial and error in the world's top big tech companies. And there were many iterations and many methodologies put in place and tried out in order to come where we are today. And here we will describe what we are now doing at Photomath and how this is similar to what other big tech companies are doing. And if you want to learn more, here are a couple of books I will also repeat on the last slide that I suggest as a reading material to learn more. But basically we can say that Silicon Valley adopted some management principles and knowledge from other industries back in 60s and 70s. And there is this most famous book from Intel's Andy Grove, High Output Management. But later on, these principles were, of course, modernized. And if you now read this book, and then if you read like Creativity Incorporated by Ed Catmull describing what is going on at Pixar, you will find out that there are basically many like similarities, many overlappings, but also many differences, because management as a skill and as practice evolved significantly over the course of the last 30 or 40 years in Silicon Valley. But first of all, what is scalable organization? Why do we need engineering management? So we want to support fast growth, actually hyper growth. At the same time, we actually want to support some other things. So here you can see this is the screenshot that I took when I was leaving Facebook. And this is from their internal tool. And you can see here that after 2 years of being at Facebook, I was there longer than 51.3% of employees. So company grew from 35,000 to more than 52,000 people in less than 2 years. So how do you support this fast growth while maintaining productivity and efficiency? How do you support this growth without falling into chaos, and at the same time ensure innovation capability? For this, you really need to to mature as an organization in terms of roles, processes, but also to be resilient to changes because everything will change internally and externally, and our jobs we're changing every couple of months. So like your job today will not be the same job in 6 months from now if you do things right. So the question is why we need managers at all. So this was the big realization of also at Photomath, because if you think about how one startup grows, usually you have like a couple of people who are all C-level at the beginning. You have like CEO, CTO, and I don't know, CIO, whatever. And you start hiring engineers. And eventually these engineers start to take over team management responsibilities, even though they maybe are not so interested in that. Maybe they do not do it well, maybe they do not have experience, but just naturally the most experienced, the most valuable engineers start taking over team management responsibilities. But actually, very commonly, these engineers do not focus on people management so much. And it turns out that they do not have time for people management. And what are some of the repercussions of this is that engineers do not have clear career growth plans. Priorities are often not clear and direction changes, which leads to confusion. We also recognize that we need more streamlined planning and road mapping process. Specifically at Photomath, we moved a lot of things from app into the cloud, which required now more coordination and some new processes. And actually, we realized that we as an engineering organization need a new set of principles, processes, and structure. And what we decided to implement at Photomath, which is similar to Silicon Valley big tech companies, is to have actually two parallel career tracks. One is a career track for individual contributors. This is the technical track. And there we introduce more seniority levels. And the second track is managerial track, where senior engineers can first become team leads, which is basically like engineering manager in training. And they can try out to be leads, try out to be managers with the smaller scope, smaller number of people, and then see how it goes for them. And eventually, if they get the right feedback, if they manage to phase themselves out from the individual contribution work, then we can promote them to engineering managers. So what is the role of engineering managers? How are they different from senior engineers? So EM role is basically triangle between people management, tech leading, and product management. There are many definitions, and I put here on the slide a couple of them. But basically, we can say that their role is to fill the gaps if team has in either tech leading or product management, but at the same time to have strong focus on people management. They should be able to support the team, and they should be able to increase the output of the team and thus output of organization. Like my boss said to me when I was starting at Facebook, he said something like, you will be accountable without actually having authority. And this is why being engineering manager is hard. And I think this is especially true in engineering, because engineers are so sought out, and it's so hard to hire them and keep them in the company. We just need to support them and not lead them or not manage them. So this is this word supporting is something that I think it's very well describes the role of the modern principle of engineering management. So yeah, growing the team, collaborating to solve problems in communication with other teams and between teams and inside the team. EM basically has three levers that they can pull. So one is purpose, the other one is people, and the third one is process. So they need to be able to explain the purpose, to motivate people, and to have processes in place to do all of them, all of that. And what I especially like is this notion of having a manager as a multiplier for the team instead of additive factor. So if you add one really great engineer, even if it's like what they say 10x engineer, it's still one additional person in the team, one additional pair of hands to do the work. But manager is the one who can really multiply the team output with increasing efficiency of the work, with hiring, with finding more scope, more impact, more opportunities for impact, and actually delivering on all of this. So this is like this multiplier is something that I think really well describes what it means to be a good engineering manager. Like I said, when we speak about this evolution of engineer into a management role, when they first become team leads, which is, like I said, engineering manager in training, or we used to call it, like we call it M0 level. So it's just the entry level in management. They need to scale themselves. What does it mean to scale yourself? So you start with a smaller number of people, but eventually you are delegating your own work and ensuring that everything works well without you. And once you come to the point that you are successfully managing 4 or 5 people and that you do not perform a lot of like individual contribution work, but more focused on your team, then we can promote you to engineering manager and say that you are a successful engineering manager. And also, like what is true in Silicon Valley companies and also now at Photomath is that becoming a manager is not a promotion. It's a change of direction. It's a transition. You are just changing direction of your career progression. And this is reflected also in financial compensation. So, like I said, these are two parallel tracks, and the very senior engineers are compensating at the same level as managers in terms of salary, in terms of stock option grants, bonuses, and whatever comes under compensation. And this is really important because we do not want like pure career progression and financial reward to be motivation for someone to move into management. This is wrong motivation. And if someone is not like great manager, but he's great engineer, he should stay in the role of great engineer and deliver impact in this way, but this should not be penalized in terms of having less smaller financial compensation that otherwise would get if they would go to management role. To recap management responsibilities, so I was speaking about this triangle of knowledge, but when it comes to pure responsibilities, to everyday work, what is it that managers are doing? So they are definitely hiring. So they are always looking for good candidates, they are interviewing, they are onboarding people, scaling the interviewing process. Onboarding is really important. So we want to have personalized onboarding plans for every engineer with clearly outlined goals, expectations, how success looks like in every month once they join. Because this then makes it easier for person to understand their role in the team and their career progression opportunities. Managers are closely working with recruiters to deliver fast and amazing interviewing experience. So we want to close interviewing loop as fast as possible. And for this to be done successfully, we also need to scale the interviewing process. So we are including engineers in interviews as well as soon as they feel ready to do that. Even some junior or mid-level engineers are interviewing other candidates and so on. Team health. For this, you can use something like some pulse measuring or similar tools, or just survey to really feel the pulse of the team, to see how people are feeling about the team and the company, if everything is well for them. Developing and maintaining strategy and vision for the team. ensuring that goals are still on some strategic level, not just too technical, setting expectations for teams and people, and of course, achieving these goals. Cross-functional collaboration, this is like the collaboration with other teams, which are maybe not engineering. Like at Photomath, we have content teams, we have annotation teams, we also have product managers and so on. But also being able to lead technical and product discussions, and this is that triangle that I was talking about. So engineering manager needs to have experience of being a good senior engineer. So engineering manager needs to be on senior level of competence when it comes to technical topics in order to understand what the team is talking about, to be the guardrail for the team, to be able to lead road mapping, to build strategy, do reviews for engineers and their work, to give feedback to them, and also replace any engineers in these tasks if needed. And of course, driver of people growth through continuous feedback, grow documents, plans, and so on. And last, of course, organization and company improvement of processes and any opportunities they see that can be improved in everyday work. So now let's jump briefly into project management. So there are like two interesting thoughts, like work expense, so as to fill the time available for its completion. And the second one is work contracts to the time that we give to it. What is the point of these two is that we need to have like realistic estimates, but also ambitious estimates. And we need to manage the project to achieve what we want to do. And why I'm speaking here in the context of engineering management is because this is interesting approach that tech companies usually have, and that is that they do not have project managers, like a specific role of project managers. We leave this to engineers, mostly for senior engineers. So this doesn't necessarily need to be true for every engineering team. Maybe sometimes in some companies like agencies and so on, project managers make sense, but we want our engineers who are creating products and features to manage their own projects. And so far it is going well for us. So like I said, no dedicated project manager role so far. No prescribed methodologies or tools. So every team has the opportunity to use, if they just want to use spreadsheets. Some teams are now started using Jira, some teams are using Trello, and so on. But what is important that they use something, that at every point in time, we have some source of truth, document or tool where we can take a look and see where the project is at which stage. So we do not follow like specific methodologies like Scrum or Agile or anything like that. There is no religion about this. And also one important thing is that whatever tool you choose, whatever methodology you choose, one of the tools that is really important are regular meetings that we call reviews. And these reviews are something that is foundation of decision making and foundation for steering projects and making decisions. So every engineer has like the mandate to call up for a review and to decide who should they invite on the review. These can be like their managers, but also some other senior colleagues, engineers from other teams, and so on. And once the review is taking place, like pre-readings should be sent up front the review so that people can prepare, and during the review they should be able to speak about the issues and open problems instead of just looking at the presentation slides and so on. So highly efficient meetings where we discuss open topics. What we still do not have is like some internally developed task tool. So we, like I mentioned, we are now combining a couple of tools. Currently we do not have like issue tracking in terms of responding to incidents, incident management, severity levels, and so on. But this is something that we are working on now. And now we have a couple of DevOps engineers who are now establishing this, and very soon we will also have this implemented The reason why we didn't have that so far is because, like I said, a lot of our computing was actually done on the mobile phones. And now we moved to the cloud, and now we need all of this. Okay, let's jump to people management. So here we have a couple of topics, like I mentioned already, hiring, but also team health and ensuring the team is happy. So it's difficult when you, like this picture here, this meme here, it's difficult when you, and this is especially true in high profile tech companies like Facebook, Google, and similar. So they are all hiring top talent, and they all have really high bar on interviews and so on. But once the engineers land the teams, they need to do some crappy work, like some boring work. And this is not really aligned with what they were advertising, like that there will be work of these engineers. So one of the roles of engineering manager is also to meet these two needs, to get the work down, even if it's boring, repetitive, crappy work, but also to really take care of engineers, their careers, opportunities for them to grow and to align work to their strengths, to support their growth. Engineering manager always needs to be paranoid that people will leave and constantly probe for signs and early warning alerts that something can be going on and that there are some problems that need to be solved. And also, like, having difficult conversations with engineers, this is just a part of manager's job. And this is the difference between, let's say, tech lead position and team lead or engineering manager position. So if someone is tech lead, she or he is dedicated to leading the technology part of the project, to lead the project, but they do not need to have these difficult conversations with people. And this conversation, once you open the trust, once you build the trust with the engineers, once you open the communication channels, you will just see that there are many difficult conversations that need to happen in a typical software engineering, in any company, I would say. So one of the tools that managers use to have these difficult conversations, to find these early warning signs and so on, are one-on-one conversations. At Photomath, we have them on a weekly basis. So every engineer needs to have someone to speak to every week for at least half an hour. And this is one-on-one conversation with someone who they trust, whether it's their team lead or true grown engineering manager. And this is a safe place for them to ask questions, point concerns, discuss work growth, and so on. And there is no skipping of this meeting by manager. It can be skipped by engineer if they have some obligations and so on. But we should try to have them really every week. And it's really, really important. And there is this great post from Mark Rapkin from Facebook, The Art of Awkward One-on-One. In brief, what he's saying that if this meeting is used just as a pure status update or work update, and if there is any topic discussed that can be overheard by some third person, then this time is wasted. So we need to have this time for really conversations and topics that need to happen just between these two persons. And these are these awkward conversations. And it takes a lot of skill and practice for managers to really come up with these awkward topics. And once you start having these meetings, having these conversations in this way, at the beginning, people will not usually have a lot of awkward topics, but very soon they open up and you will be surprised how many awkward topics there are for every engineer in your team. One-on-ones are also opportunity to give and receive feedback. What is going well, what is not going well. There is task-specific feedback, which is a feedback on a particular work that engineer performed, but there is also behavioral feedback, like if you see something happening over and over again, then you can bundle it up in some team and give behavioral feedback to engineer. always constantly looking for feedback on how we can improve, how I can improve as a manager, how team can improve, company, and so on. Focus on the future instead of focusing heavily on the past mistakes. And of course, being truthful is being helpful. So don't be nice to people that is not helpful. Of course, try to be nice, but if you just avoid having difficult conversations because you are afraid that you will appear as not nice, that is not helpful. So you cannot be friends with these people. You are working together, you are their manager, and this is the point. So it's more easy to be friends with coworkers if you're tech lead, but if you're an engineering manager, you will have to have difficult conversations. You won't be able to be nice all the time. Also making sure that feedback is understood. This is really important. But we wrote the entire guideline on how to perform these one-on-ones, and hopefully we will publish that soon on Medium blog or something like that. So there will be more information on this. Like the feedback is topic for itself. Like we could talk for hours just on the deep feedback topic. This is just the brief coverage. Receiving feedback for managers, it's also like the important skill. Because like it's easy to listen to, but it's not so easy to actually hear what people are saying. And you really need to be open and master the skill of not being defensive once you receive the feedback. And what happens here is assuming the best intent, paying attention to emotions, your own as well, and to actually reward the feedback. And what is not here on the slide, but should be perform action after receiving the feedback. Because if you just, if you say, I'm great at receiving feedback, anyone can say to me anything. But if you do not actually act afterwards, people will soon just stop giving you feedback because there is no point. Because it's hard to give harsh or honest, open feedback. That's hard. And it takes an effort from other person to give it to you. And you need to respect that and reward that and really perform action. Hold yourself accountable for this, because otherwise they will stop doing this and you will miss a lot. When it comes to people management, this is, like I said, mostly focused on growth of engineers. This is mandatory. Growth is not related to hierarchy. It can be horizontal as well as vertical. This is what I was talking about, these two career tracks. And how engineering manager is supporting the growth. He or she has to provide guidance and opportunities for engineers, provide feedback like we discussed, but also seek help from other EMs or TLs, and also formally navigate the process. And of course, performance alone is not enough. Culture is also important. I read somewhere, they said like something like one asshole has a divider effect for the team, even if it's really strong performer. If the person is just asshole, instead of being multiplier, they will be divider, and we want multipliers, like I said. Okay, when it comes to performance management as part of this growth, this is what we are awarding with people. So for engineers, we have impact direction, engineering excellence, people access, and this is taken from Facebook's framework. Other companies have very similar frameworks like this. For managers, we have team impact, people, collaboration, and organization initiatives. And here are some examples of the stuff there. How we give feedback to people. So there is, like I said, immediate ad hoc feedback that you can do anytime, anywhere. And of course, in these one-on-ones, we also have some process in place where we do some reviews, we receive feedback from people, and then managers are writing letters, but also comments, and any opportunity that you actually where you interact with engineers, you can use to give and receive feedback. And just to conclude, we are closing the presentation. So my own personal take of pros and cons of being engineering manager after I was engineer, like pros are definitely working with people because there are moments where you feel rewarded working with great people. Scale of impact through others. This is hard to recognize because when you are an engineer, when you develop something, when you push the code, when you see how it works, you immediately get this endorphin rush, hormone rush, happiness, that sense of achievement. And when you are manager, this signal is usually delayed and it's not biological. You need to be able to recognize it and recognize your role in that part. And opportunities to improve things, of course. What are the cons? Like the same as pros, working with people, because this is hard. You will have a lot of difficult conversation. It's stressful, and especially if you are dealing with, let's say, underperformers or critical situations, conflicts, and so on, it can be really stressful. Many meetings, context switching all the time, having difficult conversations, and of course, no time for technology work if this is something that you love. Okay, where to learn more about all this stuff? A couple of blogs like boss.com, Andrew Bosworth, Mark Krapkin that I already mentioned. Here are a few books that I recommend, and just start there, and very quickly you will get linked to other stuff as well. So what we talked about, like what does it mean to have scalable organization? What is the role of engineering manager? How the project and people management are done, performance management, and that's about it. Thank you. Just to conclude, we are hiring a lot. Software engineers, DevOps engineers, engineering managers as well, security engineers. There will also be a talk tomorrow from my colleague Luka Anicin. He will describe one recent project that AI team at Photomath conducted. So please join him for this talk. I'm sure it will be interesting. And I hope that we still have some time for your questions and answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Marko, for a very detailed and fascinating lecture. Do we have any questions here from the audience? Seems not. So thank you once again for the great presentation, and the lunch is served in the hall. And yeah, we'll be back here in 2.5 hours.